So Parashat Beshalach is in essence continuing the story that Am Yisrael has left Egypt but is now in the final stages of the Exodus, where Am Yisrael is now being tested with whether they truly believe in HaShem or not, where even though they saw one miracle after another in Egypt, one plague after another, whether it was HaShem taking revenge against their idol worshipping of the Nile River, or destroying them because of their immorality with the frogs. The Midrash Rabbah, Parashat Beshalach or Parashat Bo, says that the frogs, one of the things that they did in order to torture the Egyptians, aside from entering their sandwiches and their ovens and their inner stomachs, was also the frogs actually spoke. They spoke to the Egyptian, telling him, I'm about to punish you for all that you did to Am Yisrael when you didn't allow them to be together, to be clean, for them to be able to be intimate and produce more children. And then the frog will jump and bite off the part that the Egyptian would need in order to reproduce. And in essence, made many of them unable to reproduce children. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with every plague, took revenge against the Egyptians in order to sanctify his name. And after all of this and 8 other plagues, we have Am Yisrael being leaving Egypt. And now Parashat Beshalach tells us that it happened when Paro sent out the people, that HaShem did not lead them directly towards Eretz Yisrael by the way of the land of the Philistines, because that way was near, and from it one could easily go back to Egypt. So here the Parasha, Onkelos tells us that the Parasha is already clarifying that Am Yisrael, although they had enough faith to leave the Auschwitz, to leave the Bergen-Belsen, to leave the Holocaust of Egypt, they didn't necessarily have enough emunah, enough faith in Hashem to simply do everything and anything without asking any questions, as we see from the Parasha. Because Kadosh Baruch Hu sent them in a specific path that was the long way rather than the short way, because if it was too short, as soon as he presents them the next test, they could easily justify turning around and becoming slaves again. So Kadosh Baruch Hu took them on a specific path to make the return to Egypt much more difficult. So with that, we then see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe, and he says, speak to the children of Israel and let them turn back and encamp before Pul Chirasa. The Pul Chirasa is mentioned here between the Migdaleh and the sea, between Be'el Tzefon. What are these places? Why do we care about the address? I mean, obviously, it's one question a person can have is, did the desert have street addresses? Did it have roads? What do we need to know the names of all these specific places? Anytime you see names and numbers in the Torah, you should know that there's certainly things to learn. There's always things to learn, but there's specifically things to learn in these places where these names and numbers represent entire events. Many times they represent entire events and not necessarily just a location. Like in this particular case, the Be'el Tzefon was a name of an idol. A name of an idol which is, out of all the idols that Egypt had, this is the last idol that HaKadosh Baruch Hu left standing. And he left it standing specifically in order to magnify his name even further by having the Egyptians see this statue and using it logically as a justification that perhaps this false god that they have is stronger than the God of Israel, because all of the other gods that they had were demolished, but this one is not. So surely this means, according to the idol worshippers' logic, that this God is even stronger, and therefore we should go full force and go capture the Bnei Yisrael. And this is a great example of, number one, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in essence, in a language that a person can understand, takes risks in order to prove a point, in order to bury his enemies, in order to sanctify his name, as the Gemara in Masechet Chagigah, Daf Dalet Amud Aleph 4a, I believe, says that if a person did not sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name, simply they have no reason to live. And we're not even talking about if he didn't sanctify Hashem's name in his life. The Gemara is referring to every day. Kiddush Hashem is an obligation for a person each day, or else there's really no purpose for a person to live. So of course, there are many different ways to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. One of my favorite ways to do so is by doing Kiruv, by helping people do TeShuva. This is certainly one of the favorites, but there are other ways to sanctify Hashem's name. But if a person doesn't take Kiddush Hashem into their daily account, then simply the Gemara says they have certainly no purpose to live, because that's what you came here for. So here HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing us just one small example of how important it is to sanctify His name. Not because He needs it, chas v'shalom, but rather because this is what the purpose of the world is, to sanctify and glorify Hashem's name, as we say in the Song of the Sea later on. Where it's a Ze li ve'anveu, this is my God and I will glorify Him. Chazal uses that also to learn that we glorify Hashem through beautifying the mitzvot, getting a better etrog that's much more expensive but certainly much better, getting much better quality tefillin despite being more expensive. We know it's better. It's a better way to sanctify Hashem's name. A more beautiful sukkah, a more beautiful lulav, a more beautiful tzitzit. All of the mitzvot a person should exert as much effort and resources as they possibly can in order to fulfill the mitzvah above the mitzvah. There's the mitzvah of the tzitzit, there's the mitzvah of the lulav, there's the mitzvah of the sukkah and everything else. But then there's the additional mitzvah, that's the biblical mitzvah, which is to glorify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name through the mitzvot. So here HaKadosh Baruch Hu in essence is glorifying His name by taking a risk, giving Am Yisrael as a road that's much longer, than releasing the wolves to chase after them, and then giving the wolves the perception that maybe they can win this battle finally, since they found one of their idols is still around. So here we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is using nature to lead people to where they want to be led. The Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan says that abali ter mesayin be'ado, abali tameh potchim lo. Someone that comes to become purified, wants to do TeShuva, wants to sanctify themselves, wants to become holier, Hashem will help him, give him a hand. Someone that wants to become more impure, make more sins, do more bad, Hashem will also open up the door for this person. Go ahead, do what you want, but eventually you're going to have to pay the bill. Why would Hashem help the wicked? It's free choice. Not free in a sense that you can do whatever you want, but free choice that you can choose to do what you want. And in essence, have the consequences for that actions, just like you have consequences for doing things that are wrong in the regular world, regardless of where you live in the world. Every country, every neighborhood, and even every household has rules that you simply cannot be broken. When a person breaks them, they know that they're going to have to pay the bill. So here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in essence showing us a little bit more of how critical it is to follow in the path of Hashem, to learn His Torah and understand that every single word that He put in His Torah has a much bigger detail behind it. Honesty helped countless people get closer to Hashem, because for the first time in their life, they heard honesty that's brutal, but is effective.